Street Talk! Yeah!
Welcome to Street Talk. I am your host, Jason. This is for Saturday, September the 6th. Stunt Day! Back-to-back stunt days. First time ever done on Street for the Cash. $10,000 one day, $10,000 the next day. Tons of greens to give out. Hopefully, very few reds. We'll see what we can do. Now, as I've mentioned before, if you're like myself, stunt days are a great way to build a W3 before alternating reds and greens the rest of the day, and then wrapping things up with an L1. We'll get to it. Now, ton of props on stunt days, and people play them differently. Some people go all in, try to win the stunt day, go for the 10 grand on that day. Monthly players are obviously picking every prop regardless. Some people come in with big streaks. They're not going to want to risk those on some of the more coin flip props. And then some people just want to build a modest streak and get out of the day still alive. So what I'm going to try and do are look for some props, maybe the more of the hidden ones that have some value. First one we're going to look at Iowa State Cyclones hosting the Kansas State Wildcats. Now the prop is Kansas State wins by 15 or more or any other result. Now the line is, depending on the book you use, is between 11.5 and 12.5 points. So Iowa State at plus 14.5, if we tease it up to 14.5, is minus 165 favorite. Now on paper, this looks like a big mismatch. Kansas State won their opening game very handily. Iowa State lost their opening game to an FCS team, North Dakota State. They also lost their leading wide receiver. Gonna be a rough sledding, but they are at home. They always play tough at home. Secondly, these games between these two teams are actually historically really close, last year notwithstanding. Last year was a blowout at Kansas State. Before that, the last 5 meetings between these two teams had been decided by 8 points or less. So that's a big difference from 15. Finally, Iowa State has not lost to Kansas State by 15 or more points in over a decade at home. Now, like I said, they did lose last year, but that was at Kansas State. At Iowa State, they haven't lost by 15 or more in over a decade. Final point. Kansas State, their next game is versus number 5 Auburn at home. Now, caveat to that, it's 2 weeks from now. If it were next week, we could really make a case for just them getting by in this game and looking ahead. So they're probably not going to be looking ahead as much, but you can't tell me it's not on their mind. A chance to make a really bold statement by beating the national runner-up last year, Auburn, at home. So I'm going with Iowa State. I know there's a lot of in-game props going on, and we'll talk a little bit more about those in the next session. But I would say Iowa State. Any other result, we'll see you next time on Street Talk.